Okay, so welcome to the deep dive, and today we're going to jump right into something that caught our eye, a Truth Social post from you-know-who, Donald Trump.
Ah, yes.
It's got a lot of people talking,
Yeah.
and not just because of, well, it being Trump, but because it could tell us a lot about where the Republican Party is going and how they might actually, run things if they get back in power.
Right, right. I mean, this isn't just some random
Oh,
post.
definitely not.
This is giving us a glimpse into the potential future, how things might operate. And I think that's what's making people so, concerned and a little anxious about the whole thing.
Absolutely. And to really break this down, we've got a transcript from a YouTube video that does a pretty deep analysis of this Truth Social post.
Okay.
So, we'll go through that and see if we can't, pull out the key messages and figure out what the motivations might be behind all of this.
Yeah.
See what it tells us about the political landscape.
Sounds good.
So, to set the stage here, the post itself is basically Trump naming names. He's putting out there a list of people who he advises his incoming administration to just, avoid completely, not hire.
Wow.
And what's really interesting is, the timing of this. This dropped while President Biden was giving his farewell address.
Oh, wow. So during like a very symbolic moment.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, some people are saying that's got to be deliberate,
I
right?
mean, you have to wonder, it does make you think, is this a way to just immediately set the tone? Like even before he's back in office, he's already saying, this is how things are going to be different. This is the old guard. They're out.
Right. So let's actually get into the content of the post. He starts by talking about his previous administration, how they hired over 1,000, quote, outstanding people, unquote.
Okay.
But then he goes on to say, anyone who worked with or is endorsed by certain people or groups, they're off limits, don't even recommend them.
So like a blacklist almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
And who's on this list?
Okay, so get this. Americans for No Prosperity, which is headed by Charles Koch, John Bolton, Nikki Haley,
Okay.
Mike Pence, both Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney,
Oh, wow.
Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan,
Yeah.
General Mark Milley, James Mattis, and Mark Esper. I mean,
That's a pretty significant list.
it's a long list, and it's a diverse list, right? I mean, you've got, people who have been, staunchly conservative their whole careers, people who served in other Republican administrations, even some who, initially supported Trump.
Yeah, it's not just like the usual suspects, the people you'd automatically expect to see there. It makes you think, okay, what's the common thread here? What's the real criteria for being excluded?
Right. And of course, he doesn't just list the names. He uses some very, let's say, colorful language to describe them.
Oh, I bet. What does he call them?
Well, he calls them disloyal warmongers, and then says they're all suffering from Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh, TDS. Yeah, classic.
Right. So, using that kind of language when you're talking about who should and shouldn't be hired, it really sends a strong message, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it just further marginalizes them, right?
Right.
Like he's making it clear that these people are not just, disagreeing with him on policy, but they're like fundamentally bad people.
Yeah.
Disloyal, that's the word that really stands out to me. It's all about loyalty to him, not to any particular ideology or principle.
It's very personal.
It is very personal.
Now, the YouTuber who made the video analyzing this, they had a really interesting reaction to this whole thing. On the one hand, they called the post, unhinged. They even questioned, whether someone who posts something like this is really fit to be president.
Okay, yeah.
But then at the same time, they also said they found it kind of hilarious in a dark humor sort of way.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like, on the one hand, it's really disturbing and concerning. But on the other hand, there's this absurdity to it, this like over-the-top drama. It's almost like a reality TV show or something.
And there's this one part of the video where they really focus on Nikki Haley, and this is where it gets really interesting for me.
Okay, why Nikki Haley specifically?
Well, because she campaigned for Trump, right? Like she was out there trying to get him reelected, and yet here she is on the blacklist being called bird brain. And the YouTuber's take on this is that she basically humiliated herself for absolutely no reason at all.
Wow.
So, what does that tell you?
It tells me that, with Trump, there's no real forgiveness.
Right.
Like, even if you try to get back in his good graces, even if you campaign for him, if you ever crossed him in the past, you're done. It's like he has this really long memory for any perceived slights or disloyalty, and it doesn't matter what you do later on, you can't really erase that.
Yeah, there's no coming back from that.
Right, exactly.
Now, here's where the analysis gets even deeper. The YouTuber argues that this post isn't just a list of people Trump dislikes. They see it as a warning, a way of flexing his muscles.
Yeah.
And they say it's actually driven by fear.
Fear! That's interesting. Fear of what?
Well, the YouTuber's thinking is that Trump is worried about facing opposition, specifically from within his own party.
Ah, okay.
He might have trouble getting his nominees confirmed by the Senate.
Right.
So by putting out this list and basically threatening anyone who even thinks about supporting these people,
Right.
he's trying to control who ends up in his administration.
It's a power move, like don't even think about going against me because this is what will happen.
Exactly.
And the YouTuber, they even use the phrase like being Nikki Haley'd or Liz Cheney'd as like the worst thing that could happen to you politically.
Right, exactly.
Like you're going to get primaried, you're going to be ostracized, your career is over.
Yeah. So it's not just about punishing people he doesn't like. It's about making sure everyone in his own party falls in line and doesn't even think about challenging him.
Right. And that's a scary thought, because it means there's no room for dissent or debate within the party. It's just about blind obedience to one person.
It's about loyalty above all else.
Exactly.
But then the YouTuber throws in this really interesting twist, a counterpoint that's worth thinking about. They say, instead of focusing on what happened to those who opposed Trump, Republicans should be looking at what happened to those who blindly supported him.
Oh, that's an interesting perspective.
They point out that many of those people ended up facing criminal charges, serving time, or just completely disappearing from the political scene.
Oh, wow.
So, their argument is that this is the real cautionary tale.
Wow, that's a really good point. Because it makes you think, okay, is it really worth it to tie your entire political career to this one person?
Right.
Like, what happens when that person is no longer in power? What happens if they get into legal trouble themselves? You're kind of left holding the bag, right?
Yeah, it's like putting all your eggs in one very fragile basket.
Exactly.
Now, moving on to another point that the video brings up. This one's about Trump's plans for AI policy, which is a whole other can of worms, right?
Yeah, AI, that's a big one. It's moving so fast.
So apparently, he's looking to completely overhaul existing AI policies. Get rid of the safeguards that were put in place by the Biden administration. He's calling them, quote, radical leftist roadblocks to innovation, unquote.
So basically, he wants less regulation, more freedom for tech companies to do what they want with AI.
Yeah, pretty much. And
Yeah.
you can see how this is already starting to play out.
Oh, I bet. How so?
Well, you've got, the right framing this as unleashing the power of American ingenuity and creating jobs and all that. But then you have the left raising concerns about, the lack of protections, the risks of increased surveillance, the potential for AI to be used for manipulation, things like that.
Yeah, it's like that classic tension between progress and, the potential downsides of new technology.
Exactly. And there's really difficult balance to strike.
Yeah.
Because you want to encourage innovation, but you also want to make sure that it doesn't come at the expense of, basic human rights and freedoms.
Absolutely.
And here's a factor that could really complicate this whole debate. The YouTuber mentions that Elon Musk seems to be, siding with Trump on this.
Elon Musk. Wow, that's significant.
Yeah, because Musk has so much influence in the tech world and in public opinion.
Yeah.
So him supporting a more hands-off approach to AI regulation, that could really give that side of the argument a huge boost.
It definitely gives it more legitimacy, right? Like, if Elon Musk is for it, it must be a good idea.
Right. And it also makes it harder to know, what information to trust.
Yeah, because now you've got this mix of, facts and opinions and maybe even propaganda coming from people who are seen as experts or leaders. It's tough to know what to believe.
It's hard to separate the signal from the noise.
Exactly.
So just to sum up the key takeaways for you from this deep dive, Trump's Truth Social post, it seems to show some, deeper anxieties about his control over the Republican Party. And it's a pretty clear warning to anyone who might oppose him.
Yeah, it's like he's drawing a line in the sand saying you're either with me or against me.
Right. And when we look ahead to AI policy, it looks like we're headed towards a much more deregulated environment. And that raises some big questions about the future of this technology and how it's going to impact all of us.
Yeah, these are questions that everyone should be thinking about, regardless of their political views, because AI is going to affect us all, whether we like it or not.
It's the future, right? So this brings us to a couple of questions for you to ponder.
Okay, what are they?
Well, considering this very public declaration from Trump about who's in and who's out, how do you think this is going to shape the future of the Republican Party? Will it lead to more unity, everyone falling in line? Or could it actually create more division in the long run?
Those are great questions. And I think it really depends on how Republican voters respond to this.
Hmm.
Will they see this as strength or as something more troubling?
Yeah. And on the AI front, what do you think are the potential long-term consequences of this more hands-off approach to regulation? Is it going to lead to more innovation and progress, or could it open the door to some really serious ethical problems?
It's a tough one, because on the one hand, you don't want to stifle innovation, but on the other hand, you don't want to just let technology companies run wild without any oversight. It's about finding the right balance.
It's about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly.
So, these are big picture questions, and there are no easy answers.
Yeah, it's something we all need to be thinking about and discussing.
Absolutely. Hopefully this deep dive has given you a better understanding of these issues and their potential impact.
Yeah, it's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.